Welcome to Does This Work? Hosted by Jared Herft. Let's find out, does this work?
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome everyone. Welcome back to Does This Work? I'm joined with one of Perth's most revered icons in
So yeah, very generous introduction there.
famous for such things as The 12, Run, Hounds of Love, just to name a few, yeah?
Yeah, I've done a lot of TV and
Mr. Ben
movies.
Young, welcome. There'll be
Hello.
applause here so it won't sound so deadly silent.
No worries, thank
Let's
you.
just get that slightly closer to you.
Thank you for having me.
No worries, thank you. Thank you. I know you've probably driven far out of the way to get here. Just
It
like most
wouldn't
of
have
my
taken
guests.
that long if it wasn't peak hour.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
That was the curveball. I put in the address this morning,
Yeah.
and it said it'd be like 23 minutes. So I thought, oh, that's not too bad. But then when I put it in just before I left, it's like 38 minutes.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, uh-huh.
Yeah, that's kind of the story of my life because I mostly will work in the evenings.
Yeah.
So I'm driving to gigs like in peak hour.
Yeah.
And I check it's the same thing. I'm like, 15 minutes, great. 20 minutes, 22 minutes, that's perfect. And it's like sometimes from here to the city should be 22 minutes.
Yeah.
48. It's insane. Like
Wow.
it's crazy. So, but yes, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I've caught you just as you're about to go off for another project. You've finished one already.
Yeah, I am. I'm about to go to Sydney next week to do another project, but it's not announced yet, so I can't say what it is.
No, that's fine. No problem. And what have you finished anything that you can talk about?
Oh, I can't remember when I last saw you, but no. The last two things that I did is I did the second series of The Artful Dodger, which came out earlier this year
Yeah.
in February, and I did a show called Run, which I actually shot after the second series for The Artful Dodger, but that came out on the 1st of January this year.
Yeah,
So,
cool.
Run was for Binge,
Yeah.
and Artful Dodger was for Disney Hulu.
Season 2. It must feel great when you get picked up for another season as well.
Well, I wasn't on the first season,
Yeah.
so didn't feel much.
Yeah. So when you come in on because I've had a look at your IMDb. We've chatted it as well before.
Yeah.
But when you come in with a show that's established and you're a new director, do you feel like they give you this like template that they like?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's interesting. So even if you're on the first season, you might not be directing the first episodes.
Right.
And so you're still kind of stepping in, and you haven't necessarily picked the crew or the locations or the actors. And so you kind of get what you're given, and you have to work within those parameters. And so, a second season is even more like that because
Yeah.
you're very much the new kid on the block. But
Yeah.
Dodger was good because I was the first director on the second season.
Right.
So I had a little bit more leeway.
Yeah.
I was involved in casting any of the new characters,
Yeah.
and I changed up the style of the show a little bit,
Yeah.
and was able to do that
Yeah.
because it was the second season. So but certainly there's parameters that you have to deal with, and I think more than anything, I get incredibly insecure because you're turning up. Half the crew have already done this on a whole other season. All of the actors know their characters so well, so you're just terrified that you're going to be slowing everything down because
Yeah.
you don't know the show as well as everybody
Yeah.
around you. So it can be really challenging.
And then so when you're consuming TV yourself and you're watching season 2 between season 1 and season 2, can you tell the difference when a new director has come on?
Oh, look, sometimes,
Yeah.
but it's always very minor because they usually, obviously all the cast are the same, the costumes designers are all the same, the production design is all of the same, and you can't really go and reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
When you're doing series television, your job isn't to reinvent it if you're a block director. Your job is to slot in and make the show the way it is. Often the editors all cross over, and so you've got editors who kind of make sure that the style is consistent,
Yeah.
and of course you got the producers and the network watching all of the dailies and making sure that you're not trying to turn the show into something that it
Yeah.
isn't. So but I think that I can tell little differences between the directors, but I can't always tell until the end. Sometimes I might be just watching a TV show, think, the show feels a little bit different. I wonder if this is a new director. And then sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. It's just that episode just changed itself up stylistically a bit.
Yeah, I think there's episodes of Community
Yeah, I didn't watch it.
All right, where they had guest directors come on. Like I think there was an episode where they had Dick Wolf. One of the directors from Law and Order.
Yep.
And they directed an episode of Community as if it was Law and Order, and it was this comedic version of Law and Order where they were all sort of playing themselves, but versions of their characters. I imagine it'd be for a comedy show like that. It would be fun to do stuff like that. We just mess with the format as much as possible.
And I guess sometimes you're allowed to do that. Like when we did Run, we made the choice. I directed 4 of the episodes. I directed the first 2 and the last 2, and then Bonnie Moyer came in and did the middle 2.
Yeah.
And she'd never done block TV before. And she said, so does this mean I have to kind of shoot it the way you shoot it? And we just went, no, like on this show, because there's years between episodes, years or months or weeks.
Yeah.
And the characters, characters' headspace is changing so much. I just said, I reckon that like, so long as what you are shooting represents visually the experience of the character, I think go for broke.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy with how that worked out, because I think her episodes do feel different, but they feel right, and they keep the show interesting. And so there's that's the fun thing. There are no rules,
Normally I would ask like some of the guests that I have, most of these comedians, as we were talking outside. I had Blake Richardson on, who is a comedian and an actor, and he sort of bridged the gap so for me to have more conversations about people in the arts, especially people that are coming up from Perth as well. And we're seeing finally a change in some of the content that is being filmed here, as well as the talent that are finally being utilized.
Yep.
But what was it for you that got you into? I mean, you started acting, obviously.
Yeah.
Did you always have the vision as a director?
No. Like this is what I say, and it's kind of weird, and I feel guilty saying it because it is a job that so many people work really hard to try and become. I'm what I call an accidental director, because I was a childhood actor. In high school, when I was in high school, I got my drama teacher just came in one day and offered anyone who wanted an audition form and the chance to go and audition for a television commercial. So I took it, mostly because I was excited to get a half a day off school if I, just for the audition, and then maybe I get a whole day off school if I got the part. And for some reason that I'll never quite be able to understand, I did get the part. And as a result of that, I ended up getting an agent. And then before I knew it, I was like doing a TV commercial once every couple of weeks kind of thing. And then by the time I was 15, I ended up hosting a cooking show called Kids in the Kitchen on Channel 9. And I just managed to work all through high school as an actor.
Yeah.
And so that was all I wanted to do. And then as I got older and uglier, the parts and the opportunities kind of began to dry up a little bit. And I did a pre-audition course for Whopper, and I was the youngest doing it. And the kind of, the people running it just said, look, even if you were to audition, we don't normally take people out of high school. So, consider going off and getting some life experience and then coming back. You're welcome to audition, but you'll definitely be really young if you were even lucky enough to get in, which I probably wouldn't have, to be perfectly honest. So I took note of that. And also, I think I was a pretty young 17-year-old. And in this pre-audition course, most of the people were in their early 20s. So I didn't feel like I fit in even in this pre-audition course. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? I will go to film school and study screenwriting with the idea that, that can help me write the perfect script for me to use as a vehicle as an actor. And then I'll try and get into Whopper or NIDA later. So I went to film school. I went to Curtin straight out of high school and only studied screenwriting, but quickly found something really liberating about it. And that is that no one can stop you doing it. Because you're an actor. As an actor, you're so dependent on other people to tell you when you can and can't work, like you're too tall or too short, or in your case, too good looking for a role. And, and whereas writing, I could write a script and everyone could tell me it sucked, but no one could stop me writing another one, So I found that really liberating. And then when I was in my second year at film school, I did an elective called Ads and Music Videos, and it was the only practical unit that I did, practical filmmaking unit that I did. All the others were theory or writing courses. And then I'll try and tell the story in as short a way as possible. But then for whatever reason, I was the only person in the group that I got put with who knew a band. I thought I'd just write the concept, but I knew this band, and everyone else in the group was too scared to direct my friends. And so I ended up directing this music video, and I made I made what is to this day probably still the worst music video ever made in the history of man.
Is this Cartman?
Yes. Yeah. However, the band kind of took off and got feature album on Triple J, and
I'm not to tag Kane in this.
yeah, that's right. And I think the song was great and the band was great, and I think that audiences thought that I'd made this music video like to be kitschy bad, on purpose, and so it did really well. And then as a result of that, a whole bunch of bands started approaching me when I was still at uni to make music videos for them, which to me was just surreal because I was a failed actor studying screenwriting and now directing all these music videos.
Yeah.
And at the time, this was the early noughties, when Western Australian music scene was just going off.
Yeah.
So I ended up directing, I think, 10 music videos before I even finished my writing degree at film school.
Yeah.
And then I had a mate of mine, a mentor of mine, just say, what are you doing? You're a failed actor who's been doing it for now well over 10 years with a screenwriting degree, who's directed 10 music videos, some of which have been nominated for awards. You're a bloody director. And I said, no, I'm not. But anyway, he convinced me to go out and make a short film. So I did. I made a tiny little short film. It was only like 5 or 6 minutes. And it got shortlisted into Tropfest. It got into the best of the rest section, but then ended up getting bought by Qantas, and it gave me like a few $1,000s, and got on planes everywhere, and and it just sort of kind of snowballed from there to the point I thought, well, I'm going to go study this directing thing. And so I went back to uni and went to the WA Screen Academy in the first year that it existed, and did and just studied directing there, and kind of grew from there.
Yeah, and now that you've been doing it for a while, how important is film school?
Today? It's a one thing. I don't know how to answer that question, because one thing that I do know is that everybody's journey is completely different. You know what I mean? So one of my best mates who I went to film school with is a filmmaker called Zach Hilditch, who made These Final Hours. Most recently, We Bury the Dead with Daisy Ridley.
Right, yeah. And
I was at film school with him, and we kind of took the opposite approaches. He just went out and self-funded short after short after short, and then made a couple of really low budget DIY feature films in the early days of mini DV, and taught himself that way until eventually someone gave him the money to make a movie the right way. Whereas I did it completely different. I went and worked on real sets as an assistant, and kind of climbed the ranks doing it like that. And that worked for me. What Zach did worked for him. And then I know other filmmakers who never even went to film school. So everyone's journey is different. But I think that I would say that of the filmmakers I make, the filmmakers I meet who are full-time filmmakers, the vast majority probably did go to film school. But not all of them did, I'd say more filmmakers probably went to film school than actors went to drama school. Yeah. I guess. But one of the best things about film school, it's not necessarily the education that you get there. It's the people who you meet.
The connections.
Yeah. And the thing that I got out of it most was like filmmaking. It used to be a lot more expensive than it is now. And when you're at the film school, you've got like all of this gear. You can just sign out whenever you want. Yeah. So like I would literally take gear home every weekend and make something every weekend. Even if it was just a scene, like often it was just a scene. It would be like a scene from something that I'm writing with two people sitting opposite each other that I could shoot and cut myself. And I did that. And film school gave me the opportunity to get all of that gear, which I couldn't afford to rent otherwise. And it also introduced me to the people who could help me with these exercises. So, when I was at the WA Screen Academy, I had access to the Whopper actors. And so I was doing scenes with these Whopper actors, some of them who've gone off to do huge things since then. And I was just jamming with them on weekends. Yeah. So,
Well, something to be said for creating your own opportunities.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the reason I and a lot of other comedians will start hosting our own space for open mic, is because we're like, I just want to get up and do open mic spots, so I may as well like partner with that, venue and see, and then at least it's a guaranteed, if you MC as well, it's like a guaranteed 20 minutes or so on stage.
I think it's great. And also I feel like comedy is probably the same, but tell me if it isn't. I feel like all art is kind of the same. There's gatekeepers. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I imagine that if it's not an open mic night, you've got to know someone who's got to vouch for you and say that you're good. You've got to perform somewhere before they're going to let you, perform that way. And it's the same deal. If you want to make a film and you want to get any kind of money for it or support for it, you got to convince particular, bodies that you're a good filmmaker and all of this. And you might get told no, but that doesn't necessarily mean no. I mean, I got rejected 10 times for short film funding before I got it, know? And I got shortlisted for feature film funding six times before I got it, And I found, weirdly, that sometimes I'd get rejected for the funding and I'd just go off and I'd make the thing anyway. And it would do better than the films that were funded. You know what I mean? And so I think that, with all arts, it's you can't let the gatekeepers keep the gate. No, you've got to
do your own thing.
Do your own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And particularly because I think that if you believe in yourself and you're passionate, that will come through in your work. Because for me, it's never about result. It's always about process. And even if you fail, it doesn't matter, because what you learn along the way from trying and doing and putting your all into it is priceless.
Well, I think we're turning, I touched on earlier, but I feel like we're turning a corner now because we have this new studio here, and there's projects coming in. Because I started acting about 12 years ago.
Yep.
And for me, for that time, there was a lot of like, oh, something's filming here, that's great. And then, but they're casting from there, and the crew were coming from there, and then the extras will probably be from Perth.
Yeah.
So for a while, I think there was a lot of, I don't know how well known, it is to the public people who are outside of the industry.
Yeah.
But it felt like there was a lot of overlook with Perth talent in terms of crew as well sometimes, and directors and filmmakers. Do you feel like that's coming to an end now with the turn?
Oh, so are people do I feel that people are still overlooking Perth talent?
Or do you agree that they were, and do you feel like it's finished?
I feel, certainly, my story, I felt that it was us and them. So when I got my first movie financed, I thought that I'd try and get ahead of the game, and I'd reach out to some agents in Melbourne and Sydney to try and, say, look, I might be making a movie. Can you kind of, help me and introduce me to some producers and stuff and all of that? And I just got a hard no from everybody. I really felt that I was just, I was so alien because I was from Western Australia.
Yeah.
But then I made something here that kind of transcended past Melbourne and Sydney and premiered at the Venice Film Festival to very generous degrees.
Yeah.
And I kind of skipped there and I went straight to Los Angeles and started making American stuff. And then Melbourne and Sydney kind of got interested in me,
So you become something that's undeniable, right? Again, it's the same in comedy, but...
Well, it's the gatekeeping. Do you know what I mean? It was like, So I do feel that... less so now, but probably for a long time, people would just turn their nose up at West Australians and think, well, you can't be any good because you live over there, so you can't have any experience. How can you be
good if you're secluded on the other side of the planet?
If you don't have any experience, you know what I mean? You're not working with anyone, you don't know anyone, and and so I think maybe, but certainly in the last few years, Scream West has done a fantastic job at incentivizing productions to come over here. So to put it in perspective, I have done more in Western Australia in the last 2 years than I had in the 10 years prior.
Wow.
So that says everything. And then hopefully now with the opening of the studio, our crew are getting more and more experienced and people are leveling up as far as the gear and the resources that are available for Western Australians.
Yeah.
So, I think every year we are overlooked less and less.
Yeah, good. That's good. Because as an actor as well, for me, I wording this carefully, I'm not with the same agency I was.
Yeah. That's a common story for actors.
So I found that the auditions are less frequent, but they're much more substantial. So it's like you can go on to do crazy things if you get one of these. And now I've gotten not really many of those. a couple of decent ones I was mentioning about, but at least it feels like it's more of a serious. It's more of a. It's not another RAC commercial. It's not another.
But also the good thing is now is sort of like a gold rush in Western Australia in a way, because more and more stuff is happening here, but there's not that many actors with experience who are here.
Right, yeah.
And so just the talent pool is so much smaller here. And so it's a really good time to start getting some good credits because as someone who has filmed here, I hate having to fly an actor in because there's thousands of dollars that goes off the screen because we've got the flight, but then accommodation, then per diems on top of that.
Yeah.
So it's in a production's interest to cast from, the place that they're shooting. And so it's an exciting time to be a West Australian actor, I think.
As a director, or do you have much input in casting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it varies.
Yeah.
Like in a movie, the buck really kind of stops with the director.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's always a conversation between the director, the producers, and the network or studio.
Yeah.
But yes, generally the director has a lot of say in casting.
And have you ever had an experience where you found a couple people that are right for the role and it really is down to a flip of the coin?
Many times.
Yeah.
And I have also, so many times have I found people I desperately wanted to cast, but for whatever reason, the network or the studio didn't want them because they weren't considered a name.
Yeah.
Which I always find so funny because you see a movie like Obsession, which has just made so much money.
Or a $750,000 budget.
Yeah, and it's made what, like nearly 400 million.
Yeah.
And there's no names in that,
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure why, so many people still hang on to the idea of you absolutely
that's right.
need a name.
Well, who's the dad in it? Andy Richter was in it.
Yeah, but I don't know who that is.
I didn't even realize it was him.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny. I think that ultimately just the thing that people need to remember, when I say people, I mean the people making decisions, is it's like the story just needs to be good. And if the story is good and it's told well with a singular voice, i.e. not too many people at the top come in and try and fuck with it, that is what is going to resonate with an audience.
Yeah.
And
so what about the aspiring film? I've got so many more questions, but what about the aspiring filmmakers, right? The ones that they believe they've got a good story, but they don't have the network. How do they get it done? How do they approach the right people if they've just to pitch the story?
Well, that's a good question. I think that we're really fortunate in Australia that we do have funding bodies like Screen West in Western Australia, and there's one in every state, and so it's their job to support the community.
Yeah.
And so if you do have an idea, you can reach out to them and talk to them about your idea. And are there any schemes that I can apply for that you guys can help me with?
Yeah.
But probably the best way is still the grassroots way of going out and making stuff yourself, putting it in festivals, having it seen by an audience, and hope that a producer who's maybe just a little bit higher than you are, got a little bit more experience than you, sees your stuff, likes it, and says, hey, have you got anything else? So my first movie, for instance, it's a great example of how failure turned into success.
Yeah.
I applied for a grant to make a short film with a romantic comedy that was also a musical. I applied for short film funding. I got shortlisted, but I wasn't successful. But one of the people on the panel was a producer with quite a lot of experience. This is Melissa Kelly. She'd already made theatrically released movies and stuff like that. And she contacted me afterwards just to say, look, we so wanted to fund your film, and I personally thought your script was the best. I would just love to know if you've got any feature-length movies, that I could possibly come aboard and produce.
Yeah.
Particularly something in this genre, rom-com, fun, light, that would be awesome. Have you got one? I went, yeah, I've got the perfect one. So I sent her Hounds of Love, which is not a rom-com, if anyone's seen it. It's about the darkest movie it could possibly be. But I didn't tell her that. I sent it to her. And then she ended up calling me and she said, oh, fuck you. That's not the comedy you promised. She said, Ben, this is the last kind of movie I want to make, but I can't deny the fact I read it in one sitting and I needed to know what was going to happen on the next page. And she said, that just makes me think I need to make it.
Yeah.
And so, I met her because I'd been applying for funding. And so that's what you have to do. You have to just put yourself out there. And even if you're not successful, you never know who is going to see you and think, this person has a little bit further to go, but I like their voice. I'm going to, put tabs on them. And it's the same deal with actors. Yeah, it hurts when you don't get the audition, particularly if you've been called back 4 times. However, we remember, and so often it's got nothing to do with you that
Yeah.
you didn't get the role. It's someone who just wants to, put power over you or whatever, or job justified, just insist that it's that person there. And if they can do the job, your hands are tied.
Yeah.
But I'm going to remember that Jared auditioned for my last show and was really fucking good. And so the next show that I'm doing, I'm going to go, I think I know the guy.
Yeah, right.
And I've cast so many people like that. Some of the actors who aren't famous, who I've just said to the producer, the casting director, I said, they don't need to test. Just give it to this person.
great.
Just find their reel or whatever.
Yeah.
And if the network thinks that they can act, I'm telling you that they can. And just let me work with them. So, for instance, 2 of the prison guards in Run, which was my last show. No, sorry, one of the prison guards, Spago, he did an audition. He was an actor I'd worked with on the 12 who I thought was fabulous.
Yeah.
And, we had so much else to do because it was every production is just a mammoth. I was like, oh God, I've seen a lot of Spagos and none of them are working for me. Like, hang on a minute. This guy's in Perth. Just offer it to him. Go watch the 12. If you think he's good, just offer it to him. He looks great.
Yeah.
And so, you can work like that.
Yeah, it's great. I guess it's just, again, I'm going to liken it to comedy, but I have people that have wanted to start stand-up comedy.
Yep.
And they will say stuff like, I'm going to wait until it's like perfect. I'm going to wait until it's not quite right. In my point of view, it's like it's never going to be right for the first one you do.
Never.
You're going to eat shit.
Yeah.
So when you talk about people who just go out and film it yourself, you'd saying get on your mobile phones or get a whatever standard camera you have and get a tripod and just go film it. You don't wait for the right lenses and the right lighting and the right everything.
Well,
lighting, I guess.
I actually think we're at a really exciting time because with AI becoming such a big thing, the imperfections are soon going to be what makes stuff good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with I think almost not having the right lenses is a plus now because it's going to make what you're doing feel more human. And that's the thing that people are going to long for. On that note, I digress a little bit, but I just think it's so exciting that a movie like Obsession has done as well as it has, because without giving any spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's not an effects-driven movie.
No.
It's not even particularly violent. Yeah, there's violence. It's a horror movie. It's got enough to kind of keep it a horror
Just
movie.
that uneasy feeling throughout it.
And that comes from really well-written characters with really clear goals.
Yeah.
And I also think a massive part of the marketing of that film was the personal story of the filmmaker.
Yeah.
And so I am really kind of excited at that because I think more and more things that clearly have a human touch are going to be what audiences seek out.
And with ones like that where people are left interpreting it their own way.
Yeah.
Because have you heard the whole thing that she's possessed by the cat? There's things if you're the filmmaker, if you're the writer, director behind it, I guess it feels so good to know that it exists out in people's minds beyond after the credits roll.
Yeah.
Have you got a guilty pleasure movie?
Oh, so many.
Yeah.
But I think my guilty pleasure movies, most of them are actually, I think, really good.
Yeah.
They're just not the kind of movie that you would expect someone like me to say. I mean, there's no denying The Princess Bride is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I've seen that probably more than anything else.
Yeah.
Guilty pleasure. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark can't be a guilty pleasure because it's so good. Got one.
Yeah.
Kingpin.
Oh, you like Kingpin?
Love Kingpin. I kind of love everything the Farrelly brothers do. But Kingpin, I think, was my favourite.
Did you ever? I should have worn. I have a Tommy Wiseau t-shirt, like The Room, and him doing the "You're Tearing Me Apart." I was going to wear that, but I forgot. I had some boys the other day on a pod, and a couple of them had never heard of it before.
Heard of what?
Haven't heard of The Room.
Oh wow!
And I was blown away because they were like, so why would I want to watch it if it's bad?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's because
you have to watch it but you have to watch it with a room full of people. So I made the mistake of watching it on my own. Not the same experience, I think, when you're at a cinema packed with people who've had a few beers.
Yeah, well, I mean, because he has this broken English way of speaking, but he's written the script, so every character has that same way of speaking.
Exactly.
And it's just this bizarre, all right, so I've got rapid fire questions.
Yes. Oh, okay.
That's a graphic that's going to pop up there.
Cool.
I can see.
I'm down.
All right. I mean, they're not that graphic. I mean, they're not that rapid, and they're not that they're not that deep.
Confronting.
What do you hope never gets rebooted?
Another superhero movie. Any superhero movie.
Are we done with Spider-Man now? Like
I was done 15 years ago. So I haven't watched a superhero movie since Deadpool.
Yeah, I think they also kind of ruined the whole post-credit thing. Like now it's expected you're going to go see Moana and there's going to be a post-credit scene. You know, Moana's going to return in the Avengers.
Right.
It's so stupid.
I like I said, I don't know anything about that. I haven't watched one in 15 years.
What's a film that you wish you had directed?
So many that I wish I had directed. Weirdly, the first one that just came into my head right that very minute was 1 Hour Photo.
Oh, right. Yeah, Robin Williams.
Yeah. Don't know why that
So
one just
intense, man. Yeah.
came to me. That was, I mean, that was amazing. Some Terrence Malick stuff like The Thin Red Line is something I go back to over and over again. Oh, The Assassination of Jesse James by Andrew Dominic.
Yeah.
There's plenty of movies that I love just as much as these ones, but these are movies that tonally and aesthetically and emotionally really speak to me and are examples of the kind of thing that I would like to be putting
And
out
then
there.
this is the next one is if you could remake a terrible movie, what do you think that would be?
Remake a terrible movie well. I'm going to have to get back to you on that one.
That's good.
Yeah.
If Hollywood banned reboots and sequels, would cinema improve?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's what I think they should just stop rebooting, remaking, reimagining for 5 years and then just see what comes out. And then you have Curry Barker who's doing stuff without, it's not reimagining. I mean, he got that idea from an episode of The Simpsons, I believe.
That was so funny because when I saw it with my friends, I saw it with two friends who are both filmmakers. We walked out afterwards and I said, that reminded me so much of the Treehouse of Horrors episode with the monkey paw.
Yeah.
And then I was so happy to see him interviewed and say that. I was like, I knew it.
I love how he talks so passionately about it. Like he's not some grizzled whatever, you know. It's kind of like when Tarantino gets in an interview, he'll go on and he'll, you know, like Howard Stern or something, and he'll just be like, he'll just be whatever, I don't care, you know. And then, but Curry Barker is talking so passionately about how he's like, this is my vision for it. And he dropped out of film school as well.
He's not old enough to be jaded.
That's right. Yeah, he hasn't worked with that many divas yet.
Yeah.
And I already asked you, does casting come down to flip of the coin? Have you had any difficult personalities on set? You don't have to mention any names, but
I have.
Can you explain any behavior that you've seen?
Yeah, I've had a lot of very difficult personalities on stage, but
name names if you like, but
I've worked with a lot of very difficult people, and they're not always actors.
Yeah.
They're sometimes heads of department who think that the whole thing needs to be designed around their department, and they kind of forget about everybody else.
Yeah.
But interestingly, I have found, fortunately, that the kind of larger the scale production that I worked on, the less egos are there because everybody you're working with is secure. Yeah. So I have worked with giant movie stars, and they're some of the easiest people I've ever worked with because they love what they do.
Yeah, they're down to
and
earth.
They're down to earth, and they're also confident in what they do.
Yeah.
And so they don't fuss. Whereas some of the younger and newer people who are insecure, just want to announce themselves on set, or they're scared they're going to do a bad job, and so they decide to pick on someone, whether it's the director or the makeup person or someone. They just start to pick on someone, saying, you know, they're ruining the vibe, all of this, just to basically as an excuse, as insurance for them if they do a bad job, they can blame this other person.
I think that celebrity status or star status doesn't make a diva. I think you must have that personality already. Like if you have that personality and you become a celebrity, then it's just going to amplify. I'm quite self-deprecating in general. I can't take compliments, and I'm a people pleaser. So I'm just happy to be here. So
Me too. But I'm just thinking of an example now. I was filming in Georgia, in this town called Cartersville, which was about an hour and a half out of Atlanta. It was the coldest I've ever been. It was pouring with rain, and it was about 3:00 in the morning, and we weren't allowed to shoot because it was raining and there'd been some lightning. So you have to wait for like 15 minutes or whatever it is since the last lightning strike before you can shoot. And there's Billy Bob Thornton, who was in the movie, sitting outside under a KD with his like feet, you know, in the mud. There's sucking on a cigarette, just completely chill. He'd done about 4 hours overtime because the rain had just delayed us. And I just thought, oh my God, this is so terrible. I feel awful. This is one of the biggest movie stars in the world. He must think that we're chumps. And so I walked up to him and I just said, Billy, I just want you to know, I am so sorry about all of this. And he just looks at me and he goes, Ben, this is filmmaking. Yeah. And he was just totally chill, He just accepted the difficulties and didn't get in the way of anybody doing their job and just,
Yeah. Who do you think does the least amount of work on set? Because I think it's actors.
I'm not sure I'd want to say that, but I mean...
I mean, speaking as an actor as well.
Actors often get paid the most. The last to get involved and they're the first to finish and they get all the glory.
Well, that's another question. Do actors get paid too much? But
Oh, really? But no, so who do I think does the least amount of work? The producers.
I guess, yeah.
No, I think, and I mean this just to be serious for a second, one of the remarkable things about a film production is it is so massive, but every single person who is there is absolutely needed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the junior people are the ones who pick up the actors at 3:30 in the morning to take them to makeup. If one of them decides not to come to work, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The entire day is going to be delayed.
Yeah.
It's like there's not a person there who we can't function without. And that's one of the really amazing things about the job. And one of the things that it just I'm constantly reminding myself of is that everybody here is critical.
Yeah. That's what it does seem like. I mean, I feel like often like the actors, we're doing the least amount of work because we're either off, like, sitting under an umbrella somewhere or whatever, awning, and everyone's running around doing stuff. We get brought on for an hour and a half at a time, whatever, and then we're back, and then everyone's resetting. And so it just feels like I'm often kind of going, do I need to do anything? But that's just me being the...
No, and it's also, particularly if you're playing a small part, like the work is the emotional cost that it has to you, because as an actor, you cannot be an actor unless you are prepared to be vulnerable in front of a whole pile of strangers.
Yeah.
And it is really difficult if you are stepping onto a set that has been running for 3 weeks, 3 months, and everybody knows each other, and then they just shake your hand, oh, sorry, Jared, we're running really late, I'll meet this person, meet that person, all right, and action.
Yeah.
And you've got to do it. That takes a toll on you, and that is not easy. And so it kind of balances out, I think.
All right, so I've got you also are heavily involved in clickbait. Did you direct the whole?
No, I directed episode 5 and 6 of Clickbait.
Yeah, cool.
I think it was 5 and 6.
Yeah,
it was a while ago. It was 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've got some clickbait questions. So basically, it'll be like Ben. I can clip this and be like Ben Young, the Australian director says, and it'll be used as clickbait. So, have you ever disagreed with an actor about their performance? Like.
Have I disagreed with an actor about their performance?
Yeah, has it come to sort of a blows?
Wait, sorry, rewind. But this isn't in relation to clickbait.
No.
Yeah,
this is just my own clickbait.
Yeah. Right. I thought we were talking about the show clickbait.
No. So I'm using that as an example for my own clickbait that I'm going to use for this for these questions.
Yes, but not on clickbait. But yeah, I've had plenty of times where actors have completely disagreed with how they should do something. I've had actors disagree with how they should do something with stuff that I've written,
And how do you come to an understanding? Because obviously once the cameras are rolling, they can do whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't mean that as like they should be able to do whatever they want, because theoretically they've been given a job, given the role based on what your expectations of them are, and it should be a nice collaborative thing of this is what I want you to do and this is what you can do and we'll bring it together.
Yep.
But when the cameras roll, they can really just disregard what you want, can't they?
They can.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I have had disagreements with actors about how stuff should go. However, I kind of think that if I'm doing my job properly, I have given them a clear and welcoming line to me before the day that we're shooting. Yeah. And so any discrepancies that they've got with the script or anything like that can be discussed before we turn up on the day. Yeah. And sometimes, you have to leave room for that moment of inspiration that can hit when, you get there and you're just like, oh my God, we were wrong with how we planned this. It actually should be like this. And I've done that before. You know, I've turned up and much to the crew's dismay have said, you know how I said we're going to shoot it over there? We're not. We're going to do it over here. That happens.
Yeah.
But as much as you can, communicate everything beforehand, the better. And that's very much the same with performance as well. I like to try and talk to the actors as much as I can before I do. One of the things that I've started doing lately, which I have found really, 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 really valuable, is it's hard because we never have enough time in pre, but I try and get the blocking put onto the page because so often the poor writer is writing, you know, a scene in a location that they are only seeing in their head that we're never going to be able to find something exactly right. And I've seen actors turn up and just be so thrown by the geography of the house or whatever it is. And, you know, they get there and I say, oh, look, you know how the script says that you come through, you know, the front door and you go into the kitchen? Well, we can't do that because the kitchen in this house is being renovated for whatever reason, which we only found out this morning or whatever. So we're going to come in the back door and we're going to play the scene in the lounge room back there. And then the actor is like, but in my head, I planned that I was going to be doing the action of making a coffee when we did this scene. And it, you know, and it throws them for a 6. And so I just try and get anything that's going to be, I'm planning on doing differently on the day. I try and get that put on the page. And it makes such a difference when you can walk through the space with the director of photography and work out the whole scene and then take that to the writer and go, on this line, they move over there and then move over there and get the block as closely as you can put on the page. And the actors turn up and hopefully they like it. If they don't, hopefully they only want to change a little bit of it and it just speeds stuff up.
I speaking quickly, is when actors come to set, how much does it piss you off if they haven't read their line, they haven't rehearsed their lines and they're
if they don't know their lines, that's unforgivable because we don't have time for that. You know, we very rarely get time for more than a couple of takes.
Yeah, you're not Marlon Brando reading off a sandwich board.
Yeah, and you can't... I don't have time for anybody who is that disrespectful to everybody else's job.
Yeah.
You know?
Is Netflix saving filmmaking or ruining it?
Look,
Or does it just has its place?
I mean, I think streaming... One of the great things about streaming is that there is more of a demand for material now than there ever has been. I think Netflix is reinventing the industry, and we've just been in a massive kind of phase of adaptation where streaming is all just become about streaming. But I think it's gonna even out and beginning to even out, and I think that independent movies and theatrical is always going to have a place. You know, it's like, I'm sure when cinema was first invented, everyone who worked in the theater thought like, well, we're done for. Do you know what I mean? And when photography was invented, all painters who did portrait painting, they thought, well, we're done for. It's not the case, you know? So I think it's certainly changed the industry, but I don't think cinema is going to die. And just in my own experience, I saw Obsession to a sold out screening in the middle of the city where I was probably one of the oldest people in the audience, and this was a Friday night. And so, you know, teens or young people between say 15 and my age were there wanting to spend Friday night in a cinema. A couple of weeks later, I saw Disclosure Day. Same deal. Packed. Do you know what I mean?
That's good.
So,
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because for a while there, it just seemed like it was empty. I know COVID was a huge hit, but it just seemed like it wasn't recovering.
Well, there was what was worth going for?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I've got to be really motivated to come out and go to see something in a cinema these days.
I would much prefer to watch something at the cinema than I would on TV.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't a lot that I wanted to watch.
This is the reason, like, I'm just like, oh, look, the live action Moana's in, you know, there's just nothing's really drawing me in unless it's like something that's a huge buzz about it.
Yeah, I think The Invite, Olivia Wilde's movie, that's kind of number one on my list at the moment. And of course, Revelation Film Festival is on at the moment, probably be over by the time this comes out. But I've seen a bunch of films at that this year, and that's great, and that brings an awesome crowd. So,
all right, so because I know you got places to to be and things to do. I've got a quick game of like either or, right? I pulled these in no particular order. This is a list of some of the best movies of all time.
Oh, great.
I'm going to narrow it down to your favorite, just out of this list.
Yep.
Probably your favorite might even be on this list.
Ooh, okay.
But The Godfather or Shawshank Redemption?
Shawshank.
Shawshank or Casablanca?
Shawshank.
Shawshank or 2001: A Space Odyssey?
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Space Odyssey or Schindler's List?
Space Odyssey.
Space Odyssey or Pulp Fiction?
Space Odyssey.
Space Odyssey or Goodfellas?
Whoa. Oh. Space Odyssey.
Space Odyssey or The Dark Knight?
Oh, Space Odyssey.
Yeah, Space Odyssey or Fight Club?
Space Odyssey.
Space Odyssey or The Matrix?
Space Odyssey.
Space Odyssey or Parasite?
Space Odyssey.
Space Odyssey or There Will Be Blood?
I'm just going to mix it up. There will be blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. There will be blood. Yeah.
There Will Be Blood or No Country for Old Men?
Oh, that is almost a 50-50. I'm going to say There Will Be Blood.
All right. There Will Be Blood or The Departed? Oh,
I love them both so much. There Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood or Jaws?
Jaws.
Jaws or Apocalypse Now?
Jaws.
Jaws or Taxi Driver?
Jaws.
Jaws or Silence of the Lambs?
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs or Alien?
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs or Blade Runner 1982?
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs or Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark or Back to the Future?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark or Truman Show?
Raiders.
Raiders or Lost in Translation?
Raiders.
Lost in Translation. Raiders or The Elephant Man?
Raiders.
Raiders or Clockwork Orange?
Raiders.
Raiders or Lord of the Rings?
Raiders.
Raiders or Star Wars?
Raiders. Star Wars: A New Hope.
Good. Well, that's on here. It's new. It just says 1977, which is New Hope.
It's hard though because I kind of gone off Star Wars with all the new stuff that's come out. But like I'm a Star Wars nut, so I'm going to say the first trilogy. That is what I'm calling Star Wars.
Star Wars or there's going to be Star Wars because the rest is Star Wars or Rocky.
Star Wars.
Star Wars or Jurassic Park.
Star Wars.
Star Wars or Saving Private Ryan.
Star Wars.
Star Wars or The Green Mile.
I just watched that again the other day, but Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars or Get Out. Be Star Wars.
Star Wars.
That's so funny because I watched Shawshank the other day again for the first time. And I was like, I forgot how great this film is.
So good.
So Star Wars wins, right?
Well, you know what? It's kind of that's a really good game because I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, but I have about 400 Star Wars figurines from the early 80s that are left over from my childhood.
Oh, I'm glad you kept them. I got this from Disney World. This lightsaber from I feel the weight of that first of all. It's like a real.
Oh wow, that's legit.
Yeah, and then you chuck this in right at the top here. Hold on, let me just.
Yeah.
And then you light it up.
How do I do that?
Oh wait, that's not going up?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
But there's a kyber crystal inside and everything, and it's weighty. We built it at Disney
It's really
World.
weighty. This is like a real weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you could rob a deli with this or something. I would not want to cop it in the head. All right, nice. Thank you for letting me handle your sword.
No, thank you.
Whoa.
So all right, so you're off, but you can't say where. But dude, I thank you so much for coming and doing this. I know you've got. I'm going to wrap up because you got probably a drive back and you got some phone calls to
well,
make.
thank you so much for having me and asking such thoughtful questions.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, mate. It's good to
worries.
see you. We'll see you again.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah. See you again next time you're in town, maybe.
Yes, thank
Catch
you,
up for a
Jared.
drink. Thank you. Peace.
Cool.
See you next time.